Hi and welcome to my channel. My name's Dana and I love all things horror. So if you love all things horror too, you should subscribe to my channel, leave a like, and comment down below of what you'd like to see from this channel in the future. Today's video isn't really on theme of what I've been posting so far, but I really wanted to delve into the world of serial killers because I think serial killers are just as, if not more, frightening than the paranormal world because these are real people, real cases, this really happened. And I also want to start a new series on this channel talking about serial killers from the states. So I'm going to talk about a serial killer from each state in America and discuss their case. I'm starting with Richard Kuklinski, also known as the Iceman, and he is from New Jersey. Before I do start, I just want to say that this case is pretty brutal. I will be talking about violence, animal abuse, domestic abuse, and murder. So if any of those things bother you, I would suggest probably clicking off this video and maybe checking out some of my other videos. Richard Kuklinski was born on April 11th, 1935, to parents Stanley and Anna Kuklinski. Richard was really abused growing up by both his father and his mother. His father more so, but his mom didn't shy away from it either. Richard mentioned in the interviews that I watched that his father would beat him really frequently and a lot of the time for no reason. And his mother would also beat him because she felt that discipline at home really went hand in hand with a rigid religious education. So she would also beat him, and Richard brought up a time that he remembered that his mother beat him so hard over the back with a broomstick that the broomstick actually broke on him. And I thought it was really interesting that that was one of the key memories of his mother that he has growing up, and then he mentioned that in the interview. So Richard grew up in a strict Catholic household. Richard was an altar boy, but as he got older, he strayed away from the Catholic Church. Richard also abused animals as a child. He brought up in the interview again that he tied two cats' tails together and threw them over a clothesline and watched them tear each other apart, basically. He said he didn't stick around for the ending of it, but it was still really brutal and a really scary thing to bring up. It is also said that Richard watched his father kill his brother by beating him to death, and they covered it up by saying he fell down the stairs, but we're really not sure if that's the truth or not. One of his brothers did die, but we're not really sure what the cause is. Richard's dad eventually abandons the family. I guess he did come back frequently to, again, abuse his wife and Richard, but basically since he left, it left it up to Richard to fend for himself against these street gangs. And one day when he was 13, he just had enough, and he went upstairs into his closet, took the closet bar down, came down and beat one of the boys to death that was picking on him. There is controversy around this murder. Some people believe that it didn't ever happen or it was exaggerated by Richard, because I guess no one really went missing during the time when he said he murdered him. But Richard does claim that this did happen, and this kind of shaped his future. Richard mentioned that killing this boy really gave him a sense of power, and people now knew not to mess with him, and he really carried this attitude and behavior into his adulthood. Moving on to when he met his wife Barbara, I saw some sources say that he was married before, but I'm not really sure about that, so just for this case I'm going to just be talking about Barbara. Barbara really said that there was two sides to him. There was a good Richard and a bad Richard. The good Richard would, love his family, want to be around them all the time, spoil them with gifts and taking them places and doing whatever they want. But at the same time, Richard would also abuse his wife and physically abuse her and mentally and emotionally abuse his children. He had 3 children with her. It is said that Richard killed his daughter's dog because she came home late one time. I'm also not really sure about that, but I just thought I'd put that out there. When I was watching the interviews of both Richard and Barbara, Barbara really stressed that Richard loved his family dearly, and Richard himself said he would do anything for his family. He said he would kill everyone in the room if he had to, for his family. And Barbara also mentioned that she knew not to ask any questions if Richard would get up in the middle of the night or leave dinner all of a sudden. She knew not to ask him questions like, where are you going? Why are you going? It was kind of an unspoken rule. She didn't really go into detail about why that was, but she did mention that. So what really led Richard to commit these murders? Well, coming from him, he said, I only have an 8th grade education. How am I going to support my family, my children, 3 children, with just an 8th grade education? Like, how am I going to get a good job? So he thought the only option he had left was murder. So he started off working in a film lab where he sold pirated films to outside sources linked to the Gambino crime family, and this gave him kind of an in to become a hitman for the gang. He worked as a hitman out of the Gemini Lounge. They pretty much just killed people based on debts that they owed, but Richard also killed people for a variety of reasons, because they looked at him the wrong way, because they challenged his authority, just to test out new methods that he had, and it really was all over the place for him. When I was watching these interviews with Richard, he had tons of stories of murders he's committed. So for about 30 years, he really got away with all of these murders, and that was until he got a little bit sloppy when he got older, and he started making mistakes. But I really want to focus on 2 murders that really stood out to me the most, and that was the murder of Gary Smith and Louis Masgay. In 1980s, law enforcement was really getting close to finding out what these unsolved homicides. They were getting close to knowing it was Richard. So they eventually had a warrant out for arrest for 2 of Richard's associates, and that was Gary Smith and Daniel Deppner. So Richard told them to lay low in a motel, the York Motel, and he said just lay low, basically, until, I don't know if it blows over, I guess. So he told him to stay there, and Smith ended up leaving to go see his daughter, and Richard was really upset by this. He also felt that Smith was really close to ratting him out, because he often talked about wanting to live in the straight and narrow life. He wanted to get out of crime, basically. So Richard just basically thought he has to go because he's going to rat us out. One of Richard's most famous methods of killing was by cyanide. So Richard and his associate Deppner laced a hamburger with cyanide and fed it to Smith. And Smith ate it, obviously, and it took him a long time to pass away. So Richard was getting frustrated with this and ordered Deppner to strangle him to death to finish the job. And, well, he ended up dying, and I guess they had plans to move the body, but those plans fell through, so he ended up moving him into the box spring, between the box spring and the mattress of the bed in the motel, and this went pretty much unnoticed for days. People were coming in and out of the motel, staying in the room, had no idea there was a body underneath the bed, basically. And about 4 days later, they finally discovered the body of Gary Smith. Forensic pathologists said that Richard could have gotten away with this if he didn't strangle him on top of the cyanide and didn't bury him basically in the bed, because it could have looked like an overdose or something else, but it wouldn't have jumped right to homicide. But now they had the idea that it was homicide, and Richard was the last person to see him. 3-ish years later, the body of Louis Masgay was found with 2 bullet holes, or I think 1 bullet hole, in the back of his head. And 2 years before this discovery, Richard, again, was the last person to be with him, and Masgay was supposed to be buying VCR tapes from Richard. And Richard has done this before. He basically told him, there are no VCR tapes, and killed him. And to confuse the time of death, he put him in the industrial freezer and froze him for a couple years, and that's where he earned the name Iceman. So he brought him out of the freezer and placed him in garbage bags, and that kind of kept in the cold, and the body didn't thaw all the way. So when investigators found the body and they investigated, they found that there was still ice in the body, and again, they were getting close to Richard being captured. They knew there was no way that this person could have just died because there was ice, and they knew that there was something going on. Again, medical investigators said that Kuklinski could have gotten away with it again if he thawed out the body and changed his clothes, because the body was still in the same clothes as he was when he went missing. So they kind of knew. So they knew basically someone was interfering with this crime scene, basically. These 2 murders, along with 3 others, were linked to Richard because, as I mentioned, he was the last person to see them. However, this wasn't really evidence enough to arrest him. So the division of the New Jersey Criminal Task Force really set their sights on finally capturing Richard. So they had an undercover agent, Dominic Polifrone, pose as a criminal and try to purchase basically a hit from Richard. So they tape recorded the whole thing, and Richard basically went into detail about how he would commit the crime and how he would do it, and his plans to carry out future murders. And this was all on tape, so they finally really had him. Some people think that Richard spoke so freely because he had plans to kill Dominic as well, but we're not really sure about that. Pretty much Dominic is the only friend that he kept alive. People were saying that if Richard called you a friend, you were in trouble. On December 17th, 1986, a roadblock was set up, and they finally got Richard. He was found guilty of 5 counts of murder, 6 weapons violations, robbery, and attempted robbery. Many of his associates had evidence that supported these 5 murders, but also the most damning evidence was Polifrone's recording. He ultimately received 2 life sentences and died of cardiac arrest in 2006 in prison, and his wife Barbara, or ex-wife, signed a do not resuscitate order, and towards the end they asked her, do you want to basically undo that, and she said no. Before I end this video, I just want to mention that even though Richard was convicted of only 5 murders, after interviews came out of him, he pretty much confessed to killing over 100 people in many different ways. I would really suggest checking out the interviews because it's really interesting to see how he responded to the interview questions, the way he grinned when he went into detail about the murders he committed. It just really shows what type of man he was. I feel like he was a man with a really short temper who, often acted on impulse, but he was also someone who, said he didn't enjoy killing but would still kill innocent people. It's really scary knowing people like that exist. Although Richard mentioned that killing didn't bother him, it was just kind of what he did. He did bring up a story of a time that really, really chilled me. He talked about how he gave a man 30 minutes. This man was praying, and he told this man, you have 30 minutes to have God come down and save you, and if he comes down and save you, I won't kill you, but if he doesn't come down and save you, then I will kill you. And he gave him 30 minutes, and God didn't come down to save him, and he ended up killing him. But when he mentioned this, he pretty much, you could see the regret on his face, and he basically said, I shouldn't have done that one, I shouldn't have done it like that. So it's really hard to decipher what his personality is. Did these murders get to him? Did they not? Did they happen? Were they exaggerated? Richard's brother was also in prison with him. They didn't really speak often. His brother raped a 12-year-old girl and threw her and her dog off of a building, and they died. And Richard, when he was asked about this, he said, I'm not surprised because we came from the same father. So if you enjoyed today's video, I'd appreciate it, again, if you would subscribe, like, and comment down below. Let me know if you saw the interviews of Richard, what you thought of them. Do you believe him? Do you not believe him? Do you think he was exaggerating? I really don't know myself. So I'd really appreciate it if you would leave your comments down below, and also let me know what you'd like to see from this channel in the future. Okay, see you next week. Bye.